Our royal editor, Sarah, for any family, this is a really, really difficult time. For this family, the burden of the responsibility that they bear in terms of their public service and duty as well is really great. What are the next few weeks going to look like?
I think for the King now and for all of the family, they will be combining that private anxiety that they feel, having had the news of his diagnosis, with public duty and their need to get on with the job. And the responsibility of that now is going to fall on Queen Camilla's shoulders and also Prince William. And a really challenging time for both of them because Camilla is going to want to be there to support her husband as he goes through his ongoing treatment. And William had wanted to take a step back for a while to support his wife, Kate, who is recovering at home and not going to be back on public duties until April. So I think very difficult for them. But we know William's back to work tomorrow. He's going to be hosting an investiture at Windsor Castle. He's also got a charity fundraising gala for the Heir ambulance tomorrow night. I think it's quite important and definitely choreographed that we're going to see him out and about this week to reassure the public that the royal family and the business of monarchy carries on.
There's also a practical consideration, even though the King has taken a step back from public duties, because, as you say, still involved in the constitutional aspect. When you are undergoing treatment for cancer, as we've learned through shielding, it makes you particularly vulnerable. And so there are practical considerations that are going to have to be put in place. For instance, the weekly meeting with the Prime Minister, other heads of state, etc. What do you imagine is going on behind the scenes right now as the planning goes forward for this?
Yeah, I mean, we're very much in the early stages of this, aren't we? And they're taking medical advice, but they don't really know how the King is going to be as he goes through this treatment. At the moment, the plan is that those weekly audiences with the Prime Minister that take place on a Tuesday will continue. If it's decided that they need to move those not in person, then they'll do so. COVID actually set them up for this quite well. The Queen could conduct those audiences via Zoom. Likewise, he'll still be meeting with the Privy Council to give royal assent to any bills that are going through Parliament. He'll still be getting his red boxes. What we're not going to see is the King out and about shaking hands with members of the public for some time.
What do you think of the messaging from the palace, Sarah? You're obviously very familiar with statements that we get from Buckingham Palace, that the tone really did suggest a different degree of seriousness to what we heard, the candour of the enlarged prostate sort of information that they gave to the public. This feels much more slightly closed shop and saying, as a family, we're going to keep this to ourselves for now.
Yes, I agree with that. There's a lot we don't know about this diagnosis at this stage. It's not to say that the King might decide at some point that he's going to give a little bit more information. As I say, I do think this is very, very recent news that they are dealing with. But actually, I thought that the palace were trying to get ahead on this. There was a very detailed briefing given to journalists yesterday about this. They wanted to reassure the public that they were not going to be in a situation where councillors of state were needed, for example. We're not talking about a regency here. The King has started immediate treatment, for example. We don't know the timeframes, of course. We don't know the type of cancer. But I think they have learnt lessons from the past. Transparency in itself is somewhat reassuring, isn't it? When there's a lot of secrecy, that's when the public start to get concerned.
And we can't ignore the Harry issue.
Yeah.
Grant said he thought that he might be in regular contact with his brother William. What's your thoughts on that?
I just don't know. I mean, I think that relationship is pretty badly damaged.
Is there an opportunity here, though?
Potentially, but I think William's got an awful lot on his plate, hasn't he, with Kate looking after the children, stepping up to fill some of his father's duties as well. I'd like to think you can put the family dramas to one side. These are two brothers who lost their mother at a very early stage. They're now dealing with the diagnosis of their father.
But that point about the stress that a family risk can cause, at a time like this, you don't want stress, so there's a potential for at least a meeting, I would have thought.
Well, potentially, and, I've thought a lot over the recent weeks how much Prince William could have done with his brother right now and what a role Harry could have played in supporting him, and also Harry and Meghan in taking on some of those public-facing duties. The monarchy looking pretty thin on the ground
Even
right
just
now.
the physical distance creates a problem.
Yeah.
When you need your family to be there, they're not close at all, let alone at the rift in the relationship.